What are the best and worst weight loss diets coming into 2025? I set out to answer this question, and after figuring out there were 62 different diets ranging from the banana diet to the South Beach diet, I knew I had to set some boundaries. So for a diet to make it past the elimination round, it has to be accessible to everyone. I'm also going to cut any commercial diets like Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers, and any diets I think are just unpractical. So after a fierce elimination round, I'm left with 12 diets. I'll review each diet's pros and cons and rank them based on effort, cost, and most importantly, effectiveness at losing weight. Starting hot with the Mediterranean diet. This diet is inspired by traditional eating patterns found in Italy, Greece, Spain. I like to think of it like it's the ancient Roman diet. If you decide to follow the Mediterranean diet, expect to eat primarily fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains, healthy fats, seafood, poultry, and dairy. Already, I'm noticing a lack of processed foods, and I'm thinking it's going to get top marks. So what are the pros and cons? In our positive camp, I found two main points. A study that followed 25,000 women over 25 years discovered that the Mediterranean diet reduced the risk of death from all causes by 25%, particularly benefiting health problems and cancer. Another examined 850 older adults and found that following the Mediterranean diet strictly slowed mental decline, including memory and attention issues. So what are the downsides? Because I did find three major points. Firstly, the diet has multiple high caloric food groups such as oils, nuts, and seeds that you would expect to help you lose weight, but in reality, if not managed properly, could put on some significant weight gain. The diet also leaves quite a lot of decision making for what type of foods to eat. And many of the Western interpretations of Mediterranean foods could be ultra-processed foods that are relying on the Mediterranean marketing. It's also hellishly expensive, but if you can fork out the cash, it's really reliable. And for that, I'm putting it in A tier. It's a really good choice for losing weight with only a few minor downsides. I hope you've got your time machine because we're going back in time to the caveman era to review the paleo diet. Also known as the caveman diet, is inspired by the eating patterns of our ancient hunter-gatherer tribes, and it stresses that modern foods and agriculture don't match our human blueprint to what we should be eating. It advocates eating whole, unprocessed foods that would have only been available in ancient times. So get ready to seriously cut back time spent at the supermarket because we're eliminating grains, legumes, dairy products, refined sugars, and processed foods, leaving only meat, fruit, and vegetables. Already, I'm confident if you followed this diet, you'd lose some serious weight. 2,000 calories of meat and vegetables is a crap ton of food. But I'm also seeing no milk for my morning coffee, and I'm tempted to go D tier right here, right now. But I'll put my feud aside and let science speak. What are the pros and cons? The only major study I could find showed people that followed the paleo diet lost significant weight and improved their ability to process sugars and keep fat off. They also improved their blood pressure and appetite. Woohoo! Right? Well, researchers couldn't decide whether it was paleo diet doing all the fixing or just the simple fact that people stopped eating ultra-processed foods. My thoughts, sticking to meat and veggies is always going to be a bonus. But why eat like a caveman when you can eat like a Roman emperor? And for that, it's going to go in B tier. Now, I hope you've brought your swim togs because things are about to get wet with the liquid diet. Now, researching this diet, I found you can either have all of your meals in liquid form or just some. But because only having some of your meals in liquid form is pretty much a normal diet with a few smoothies chucked in, I decided to review the liquid diet as if you were having only liquids. So what are the liquids? Well, you've got smoothies, juices, soups, broths, meal replacement shakes, and prescribed nutritional liquids. Now, most of the studies already claim this diet is a very weak long-term weight loss strategy. Risks include low intake of vitamins, iron, and fiber, and the reduction of protein and calories might lead to feeling lethargic and intense mood changes. You also get some serious diarrhea. Yikes. While it does have the benefit of being easy on the digestive system, helpful to people with chewing and swallowing issues, and can lead to some quick weight loss, the lack of being a long-term sustainable option leaves it being tipped down the drain at dirty D tier. But speaking of quick weight loss, let's jump to keto. The keto diet involves eating minimal carbs, less than 50 grams, and involves eating majority, 90% of your diet from fats. This forces your body into a state called ketosis, where instead of pulling energy from your carbs, it takes it from a fuel source produced by the liver from stored fats called ketone bodies. Now, because we are restricting 99% of your carbs, what you can and can't eat is very specific. On the menu, you've got beef, pork, lamb, chicken, avocados, butter, oils, some leafy greens, cauliflower, zucchini, almonds, chia seeds, cheese, cream, and full-fat yogurt. Off the menu is any bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, most fruit and vegetables, sodas, sweet treats, and desserts. That is a tough crowd, so you are giving up quite a bit, but what can you expect in return? On the plus side, keto is renowned for rapid weight loss, which sounds like a huge benefit. But in fact, most of the weight you lose is actually water weight from the carbs you're cutting out, not from the stored fat like we wish. So although you are dropping weight, you're not necessarily slimming down. Keto does bring the benefit of reducing your appetite, which can lead to a caloric deficit. And because you are cutting out all of your processed and ultra-processed foods, it's very easy to maintain that caloric deficit. But no desserts can be just as bad as it's good. And if you're looking for long-term sustainability, that fact, along with a handful of other restrictions, places the keto diet firmly in the C tier. But before we leave the low-carb aisle for good, let's take a peek at the Atkins diet. If you thought general dieting was tough, Atkins takes the difficulty and cranks it to extreme. The main focus of the Atkins diet is finding the right balance between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And to do this, it has you following a specific 4-phase system. Firstly, induction, where for the first 2 weeks, you eat less than 20 grams of carbs, putting you in a state of ketosis. Next, you move to the balancing phase, where you slowly add more fruits, nuts, and seeds back into the diet. Then it's the pre-maintenance phase, when you get close to your goal weight and you start to add more carbohydrates until the weight loss slows down. And then finally finishing at the maintenance phase, where you eat as many carbohydrates as your body can tolerate without regaining the weight. Now, this already seems like an improvement to the keto diet. It takes the benefit of restricting carbs and losing significant weight early on, but removes the long-term sustainability issue by slowly adding carbs back in, which makes me think, why do it in the first place? If you've got the motivation to go through a 4-phase system as complicated as that, wouldn't it be easier just to start off reducing your calories and then lose weight at a more reliable rate? Now, Atkins doesn't follow a set of restricted foods, but changes gradually over time. The food restrictions are very similar to keto. Avoid high-carb options like breads, fruit, some vegetables, starchy foods, desserts, and sodas, and eat your high-fat options. I'm gonna be honest, Atkins is more like Atkins, because it's going in the dirty D tier. Like I mentioned before, if you're willing to go through all of that hassle just to get to a healthy diet, you might as well start at a healthy diet. But we've been shopping in the low carb aisle for quite a while and we haven't yet found a winner. So let's take a 180 turn and see if we can find salvation in the low fat diet. And it's exactly what you'd expect. You're now on the lookout for foods labeled low fat. The low fat craze became popular during the 1980s and 1990s, where a number of studies suggested that high fat diets could lead to high cholesterol and health problems. But as we've just discovered, individuals can follow a diet where it's 90% fats and not run into many, if any, health problems. So it's hard to know. Unlike previously discussed diets, the low-fat diet doesn't have a huge following or a lot of structure. I'd say it's more of a guideline than a diet, but I have found 2 studies that dive a bit deeper into it. On the plus side, because 1 gram of fat does equal 9 calories, if you cut out significant fat, you do cut out a huge portion of calories. However, there is always downsides. A low-fat diet can lead to people feeling intense hunger due to low satiety from fats, leading them to overeat on carbs. Some low-fat foods can also be really high in sugars, sodium, and starches, which could undermine the intended health benefits and potentially lead to further metabolic issues. All in all, the low-fat diet doesn't restrict any food groups and can serve as an easy guideline to lower some calories. But with the unreliability of long-term weight loss, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Now let's move our way over to the vegetable aisle and go green because it's time to look at the vegan diet. Now, I also plan to cover the vegetarian and pescatarian diets next, which are less extreme versions of the vegan diet, but do follow a very similar structure. So to save time and minimize confusion, I'm going to cross-reference facts. The vegan diet focuses on a diet that consists only of plant-based foods. That being fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts and seeds, and beans. And excludes all animal-based products, so meat, dairy, seafood, and eggs. These days, there are numerous vegan-friendly options that make following this diet far easier than it's been in the past, albeit at a high cost. Information taken from these two studies gives us numerous pros and cons. On the plus side, because you're restricted to plant-based foods, there's a lower risk of conditions like type 2 diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. You'll also gain improved digestion and energy because of the high fiber, easy to digest foods, and you get to feel morally superior at dinner parties. The downside is maintaining this diet at dinner parties. You can also run into some nutritional deficiencies such as vitamin B, calcium, iron, omega-3s, and vitamin D, which adds another layer of difficulty due to supplementation. Lastly, you're very limited to the foods you can eat, which means you do have to follow quite an intense plan to make sure you are hitting all of your needs. Because of these downsides, I'm going to place it in C tier. You can lose significant weight on a vegan diet, but with the difficulty in supplementation and the meal planning, there are far better options. So what about the vegetarian diet? Similar to vegan, the vegetarian diet does still stick to plant-based foods, with the exception that you're now allowed to consume products made from animals, such as eggs and milk. You gain the same benefits as the vegan diet, such as lower risk of type 2 diabetes, cancer, and heart problems, and the improved digestion and energy. But now you don't run the risk of being deficient in certain nutrients due to the dairy products available. All in all, it's an easier, more sustainable variation of the vegan diet, therefore I'm putting it in B tier. And finally, let's look at the pescatarian diet. We've got the same restrictions as we would the vegan and vegetarian diet, but now we've unlocked seafood and fish, meaning the benefits stay the same, but we don't have to worry as much about supplementing for certain nutritional deficiencies. This is the most flexible of the three, but it does still come with a number of difficulties around supplementation and planning. Therefore, it doesn't make it into the A tier and it sits side by side the vegetarian diet. But we can't show the plants all the love without strolling through the paddocks, so let's have a look at the carnivore diet. Aside from giving you a 20% boost to your manliness, what can you expect jumping on the meat train? Firstly, let's note the carnivore diet is an extreme version of a low-carb diet, primarily consuming only animal products, so meat, fish, eggs, and some dairy. It excludes all plant-based foods, so vegetables, fruits, nuts, and grains. It sounds like every young man's dream, but is it really as good as it seems? This study gives us a bit of insight. Many cases report significant drops in weight due to its restrictive nature and high protein content, which suppresses appetite. It can be easier to follow because it reduces most food groups and focuses solely on animal-based products, leading to less decision making, and in some cases can stabilize blood sugar levels, which may benefit those with insulin resistance. But similar to just eating vegetables, it does come with some drawbacks in the nutritional deficiencies compartment. Fiber, vitamin C, E, and other antioxidants are only obtained through supplementation. It does have an increased risk of heart disease due to high fat content and cholesterol through an overconsumption of red meats, particularly processed meat. Good meat is also really expensive. Therefore, it sits next to its arch nemesis in the B tier. Moving into the final two diets, let's get into the zone, or should I say the zone diet, because that's what we're covering next. The zone diet is like the Buddhist monk of diets, arguing for a balance between all macronutrients. The diet's core philosophy argues for 40% carbs, 30% protein and 30% fats at every meal, believing that maintaining this balance reduces inflammation, improves weight management, and increases overall health. This sounds promising, but how does it hold up under the scopes? Using these two websites to dive a little bit deeper, I found links between the Zone diet and better blood sugar, cholesterol, appetite management, and reduce inflammation. It may also improve weight loss and improve heart health by promoting lean proteins, healthy carbs, and fats. However, it's hard to know whether the Zone diet was to credit for these benefits or just simply the fact that reducing calories was the big factor here. And that's where it has its downsides. It can be hard to split every meal into a 40-30-30 split of macronutrients, and without a clear sign it's worth the effort, it does lose some points. Although it doesn't restrict you to any certain food groups, and it gives you the option to hit all of your macro and micronutrients without supplementations, it does make it into the A tier. And finally, I hope you haven't broken your fast or you're going to be in some serious trouble from today's final diet, intermittent fasting. The only diet that doesn't have diet in its name. Does it even count at that point? I'm sure it could be argued, but we're not here for the logistics. I want to know, can it help us lose weight? And to get that answer, I've recruited these two studies to help me. Firstly, intermittent fasting refers to alternating long periods of not eating with short periods of eating. The most common pattern includes a 16-8 split, where you don't eat for 16 hours of the day, and you have a small 8-hour window where you can eat. You can also follow a 5-2 split, where for 5 of the days you eat normal, and then for 2 unconsecutive days you cut your calories significantly. Whether you follow the 16-8 or the 5-2 method, intermittent fasting consistently leads to a calorie restriction, which contributes to weight loss. Fasting has also shown to increase blood sugar levels and improve insulin sensitivity, which can lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. The downside comes when during the fasting window, some individuals may experience intense hunger, which could lead to binge eating. Meaning, without a plan, especially around the foods you're going to eat during your eating window, you could be left worse off than you started. But intermittent fasting doesn't always have to follow the strict rules, and you can start with a 12-12 split, fasting for only 12 hours of the day instead of 16, and then slowly increasing it over time. So with the pros and cons weighed up, I think it's safe to say intermittent fasting makes its way into the A tier. Now, with all of the diets ranked, what do I think is the best and worst? For worse, I'm sorry, Dr. Robert C. Atkins, but the Atkins diet, in my opinion, is the worst. If you've got the willpower to follow a complicated 4-step process just to get to a healthy diet, then you can just go straight to the healthy diet and see the benefits. And for the best, I've got to say it's intermittent fasting. And if you want to find out how exactly you can use this diet to lose significant weight, I've made a separate video right here where I dive deep into it. Cheers, gents.